Hey, I'm Bo the Mechanic. I'm going to shoot a little video for you guys and show you guys how a starter works, an automotive starter for your car. Lucky for you guys, I'm putting together this Ferrari. It's a BMW Z3, and it's got a blown head gasket. So somebody ran it hot and blew the head gasket. So as you can see, it's really fun. It takes a long time to put this thing back together, but unfortunately for me, fortunately for you guys, this starter, which sits right down in that little hole, was sticking. And so, basically I had to take it off. What happens is the head gasket blew, and people usually keep cranking on the car trying to get it to start. And you crank on it, you crank on it, you crank on it. It doesn't want to start because it's so hot, it's pre-detonating, which means it's so hot the gas just explodes from the heat, and it's pre-detonating. People don't know that. They think they just want to get home, and they just keep cranking on the car. It fires up for a second maybe, and then dies again, usually because it's so hot, and then eventually the head gasket blows. But when you keep cranking on your starter, what will happen is you burn things up, you break things, they get scorchingly hot because there's so much electricity flowing through the starter that it heats up real quick and it breaks things. So, like I said, this starter was sticking, and I'm going to show you kind of how they go together. This is an actual gear, and this gear right here meshes with your flywheel or your flex plate, which you guys can see is right in here. There's some teeth right there, and it engages those teeth. When you hit the key, electricity flows into what's called a Bendix. I'm trying to find it. Here you go. This is called a Bendix, and basically what happens is electricity is sitting here ready to go. A good battery lead, straight from your battery, goes right to this lead. Okay? And it's got a ground as well, and it's basically sitting here waiting for electricity to hit it. And the problem is with the starter, you wouldn't want to have a huge battery cable going into your car because it would just be troublesome and expensive. So what they do is they make kind of a little relay, and the relay takes a little bit of electricity to get it to engage, and then you've already got your battery supply right here, so it doesn't need to have the wires running all the way into your car directly to a switch. Okay, so like I said, basically you've got a battery cable going straight to this lead, and it's grounded to the block of the engine. And so basically it's just sitting here with this little tiny wire waiting for a battery supply voltage. So when you hit the key to the start position, electricity flows into this little wire, closes the main contacts, the small contacts in here, which closes the main contacts, which allows electricity from this part right here to shoot into the starter right here. Okay? And what also it does at the exact same time is this Bendix actually is an electromagnet, and it pushes a diaphragm on the inside right here. It pushes the diaphragm out, just like kicks it out. Okay, so when it does that, what it does is pretty simple. It just kicks this gear up and into line, as you guys can see. Maybe see if I can get my finger back there. Of course I can't. Basically it kicks this gear up like this. It engages it up in the up direction, like up that way, and it'll engage the flywheel. The flywheel is sitting right around this direction, and so it starts spinning. It kicks it up, and then it starts spinning at the exact same time. See, now when I let go of my thumb, you'll see that it just drops back down to the non-starting car mode. So when the car is not being started, it stays down here, and the flywheel just is so close. The tolerances are so close. The flywheel is in this area, and the starter, the Bendix, the gear is actually below it. So say you turn your car off and you wait a few seconds, and you come back out from the grocery store and you want to hit the key. You press the key, electricity flows through this wire right here into this Bendix. It also at the same time flows, let's see right here, into this massive bundle of wire. This is just one wire, it's just electricity. Positive side, the positive will run into here. And this thing's an electric motor, and all it does is spin. It just spins, and it spins like hell. So that's the actual starter's only job, is to spin in a circle. Just spin, spin, spin. The secondary issue you have, like I said, is you need to get this spinning energy to go up into the flywheel. And so what it does, like I said, it just kicks this gear up and then spins all at the same time. So right now we would be in car start mode, and it would be spinning. This electric body would be spinning, 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 and then car starts running. You let off the key, and it drops back down. And the reason that it does that is because there's a spring inside here. Let me show you kind of how this thing is. When I yank this thing out, this is your gear. And as you can see inside here, these are called planetary gears and a sun gear. And this is called a gear reduction starter, okay? So for every time that it spins, it's got a reduction to spin this even faster. It gives you more torque. So, let's see if you guys can see it this way. With this, I just took the housing off, okay? It's called the cone. A lot of times these cones will break off, but on this specific starter, so what will happen is, this thing sits in there like this. You get the key go, it just kicks it up, see? It's really simple. Up, down, up, down, up, down. Turning the car on, spinning it over, car's already on, no longer using the starter. So it's really simple. So what happens a lot of times, most of the time really, unless you hit this, okay, or somehow just do something crazy, you never want to hit this with anything, okay, and I'll show you why. There are magnets lining this thing, okay? It's a bunch of coils inside here like an electric motor and a bunch of magnets around the perimeter. And that's how electric motors work, you know, windings. So when you hit the starter with a hammer, it'll break the magnets on the inside of this and destroy your starter, and it won't work anymore because you've broken the magnets. Now when they say you need to tap on your starter, what they're actually talking about, you hear a lot of guys say that, what they're actually talking about is tap on this, your little solenoid, your little Bendix thing. And so when you tap on this, a lot of times it'll free up that spring in there which wears out, and it'll push it forward, okay? So you don't really want to hit on this, you want to tap on this thing right here, okay? As you can see in here, this is just all plastic. This is just a plastic arm, control arm, and you know, they're built kind of crappy. So what happened with this car is this guy had cranked it so much that he'd actually broken this plastic ring. That's kind of a retainer ring, and it holds all these chunks. It kind of gives a little bit more resistance to the inside of this bearing seal here, as you can see right in here, and that's what he broke off. So you can see that whole body assembly wanting to lift up a little bit, which isn't that big of a concern for me. I'm just going to put it back together and re-grease everything. And the reason it's not that big of a concern to me is what was happening is this thing was barely engaging. It was never kicking to the down position for this guy's car. And what it would do is just kind of stick in the up position about right here. And it was just enough to barely nick the flywheel and make a horrible noise. So the reason I don't really worry about it is because the cone, this nose cone, holds everything back down. You can see there's a lip right here, and there's this nose cone, and when it's all back together, it presses down on the body, so it can't really come up. You don't really need this. This doesn't really hold anything. And the reason that it cracked is because, like I said, he cranked it so much that it actually melted this and weakened it, probably from years of use and then him cranking the hell out of it. But this is just a good video for me to show you guys how a starter actually works and why you don't need to hit the main body of the starter. You want to hit this part of the starter, because this is what usually breaks. And then a whole other thing is, you know, you can get these for really cheap. You know, not many guys do it anymore, but out back in the old days, you wouldn't even mess with this because they rarely go bad. The windings are pretty damn good, and unless those magnets are somehow cracked and broken, you really wouldn't have any problem with this actual motor. And you know, you would have lots of problems with these, and they used to, you know, back in the old days, they sold these for 20 bucks. You know, you could buy this for your Chevy 350 or your Ford pickup for 15, 20 bucks, and you just mount it right on. And you can see, like on this specific, this is a BMW starter, and it's got 3 rings on it, three Phillips head screws that hold that body in. But you know, every little car is different. But so, you know, this is just a good video for you guys to understand how they work and what fails and why you don't hit on this part of the car when it won't start. Your starter won't start. Tap on that. Whole second thing, you know, is you know, I guess this little issue, the broken plastic pieces, but like I said, it's not going to affect this particular car when I put it back together. Hey, so before we put the starter back on, I'm going to show you guys how to test it. You might as well learn, because you might have to at some point. So here's the starter. I put it back together, okay? There's the body that I told you about. Originally the problem was this gear wasn't kicking down far enough because of those plastic pieces that I showed you just a second ago. But there it is put back together. There's just those 2 bolts. Usually most starters are very similar. There's just some bolts in the back that hold the electric motor to the body. And there's this part right here that I called the Bendix, and this part right here actually kicks the starter out, and it also lets electricity flow through it, and the electric motor makes it spin. And so there is the wire, the run-through wire that makes the electric motor spin. And you know, so your battery terminal would go right here to your starter. So how we're going to hook this thing up, and it's going to be very similar on almost every starter you'll ever see. You know, maybe you think your starter's bad, but you don't really know. So you take this, and we're going to take this just jumper cables and a battery. And let's see what we can do here. Positive, positive, red to positive, black to ground. And we're going to ground the pump, the starter's body. And let's see if I can get a good position for y'all to see this. I'm just going to step on it because sometimes it wants to start spinning. Okay, and see, I just put the positive side to where my battery cable would go. Now I'm going to need a little wire, like I told you guys, to jump. A little wire to supply voltage to this side, okay? And all the starters are a little bit different, but you're basically going to find, you know, where that wire would plug in or wherever the wire is going to go, and you just take a little thin wire and you tap it. Tap it from here to there. So we'll do that. Okay, so here you go. Like I said, I've got my little thin wire just jumping, and you know, I'm going to see what happens now when I touch this, okay? When I touch it, it should engage and it should start spinning the Bendix. Let's see if you guys can see this. So you see what it's doing there? It's doing two things. It's kicking the starter out and it's spinning it at the exact same time. Seems to work. So this starter's good. Put it back on the car and see what happens.